I'm Gavin Dunaway. I'm senior editor of Ad Monsters. We're a trade site and a publication trade site and a conference company. Just had an event last week called Ops, which Will was kind enough to moderate a panel on connected TV. So programmatic, I normally take this from the sell side. I've written a playbook about programmatic video for publishers, basics of implementing it. So I found it very interesting that Will wanted me to talk to people on the buy side, because frankly, I have a lot of questions for you. Hope you're prepared. But first, let's do the simple ones. Hopefully, this is a very simple one. If you can give me your name, your title and company, and then idea of your day-to-day responsibilities, and then, you know, programmatic advertising really has taken off. I would say maybe last year and a half. What do you think is the chief driver? Is it just unquenchable thirst for inventory?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm Trolls. I work for LiveRail on the demand side, so that means relationships with DSPs, trading desks, advertisers, agencies. So the buy side. So I think the other question was, why is programmatic continuing its trend? I think it's all about, what's that? What is it? It's all about the decisioning power and then just an unquenchable thirst for great inventory, and now finally I think we're seeing better inventory come into programmatic channels, and with that inventory available, we're seeing demand skyrocket.
Thanks. Neeraj at Tremor Video. I oversee our DSP, our Tremor Video DSP that has been designed very specifically with video in mind. In terms of what's driving programmatic, it's, you know, I use this quote repeatedly. It's actually Jimmy Kimmel. And he says, programmatic is the gluten of advertising. So everyone's doing it. You know, it's working out for some people, not for others. At the end of the day, given the video consumption, the fragmentation, the fact that consumers are in control, there's really no other way to be targeted without using underlying programmatic techniques.
Jim Crusoe, head of product strategy at Varix. So we are a fully programmatic shop. I run developing our product stack, our technology stack, as well as who we partner with on the SSP, DSP side, like that as well, and then marketing our company out externally. So I guess for us, programmatic we define as pretty much any way to make yourself as smart as possible about delivering advertising. So it's quite that that cut and dry. We try to say we will take any amount of data. We'll use that data to drive really smart decisioning for advertisers and for brands.
Cool. I'm Larry Allen at Xaxis. I run our Xaxis Marketplace, which is our publisher direct inventory acquisition business. Programmatic, I think, is for us, and I think everybody, really that application of data and technology to media to drive efficiency and results for the client. And when I say efficiency, I don't just mean driving the price down, because I don't think that is the end goal. I think the goal is really to identify the right people and outcomes for the client to get them a desired result.
Interesting. And that actually kind of leads to my next question was, are those operational efficiencies of programmatic video, are they really a selling point for the clients? Does that make them want to shoot budget into the channel?
So I think maybe the client cares to some degree. I think they care about who they're reaching and how they're reaching them, and is the message getting in front of the right person in order to move some deodorant or drive some initial result or engagement with their message. I think when we talk about things that we can do with data applied to media, they get really excited. Yeah. And so that is interesting to them. The nuts and bolts of, is it actually more human efficient? I don't know that they care unless they're getting a better media rate because of it.
Because in my experience, there's a lot of inefficiencies in programmatic. I mean, particularly with like preferred deals and private exchanges. I mean, does that ever create hiccups with the people who hold the purse strings?
I would say it's a little bit too manual for where we'd like to be right now. So on the sell side of working for an SSP, we spend a lot of times building better technology to couple together the buy side platforms and the sell side platforms, so it all becomes automatic, and I think lives up to the notion of efficiency, even though you are executing a direct deal between a buyer and a publisher.
Yeah, I mean, I think PMPs and private exchanges currently fairly inefficient process. So much of it actually happens outside of a platform. If you think about the time spent structuring a PMP relative to the spend going through for a private marketplace, a pretty substantial disconnect there. So I think there's some work to be done in that. In terms of other areas of productivity, the ability to optimize to viewability, or to optimize the completion rate, or more granular, nuanced views of viewability beyond the IAB MRC standard. If you have algorithms and computers that can do that, I mean, there is significant efficiency and productivity gains to be had there. Mm-hmm. The scenario without computers would be downloading things in Excel, looking at viewability by domain, and then making manual adjustments. Computers are just inherently better designed to do those kinds of things.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, I mean, I think those are all right in line with how we think. I mean, I think the word efficiency is kind of a weird, to a client, to your point, they don't really care, right? I mean, they care about delivering value. So, our job is to get the most value out of every dollar they put into media and advertising. And how we do that and how many people it takes us, they could really care less. For us, internal efficiency is obviously something we build our technology to help us with, but there's still a lot. I mean, we all know there's a lot of people that are involved in making this all happen. They don't just go away, no matter how much tech you build. You might move those heads from account managers or people using Excel to product managers and engineers building the software, but none of that goes away. So when we pitch into clients, we're not talking about how efficient it is per se. I think it's more about the value of it, and that value could come in price. It could come in reach. It could come in scale. It could come in just multi-channel use. So it's really about how much value we can deliver using the tools that we have available to us.
That's very cool. Now, I think Niraj said decisioning right off the top. That targeting, it's a big deal with programmatic. I mean, what are the most popular video targeting aspects? Are we talking like plain old cookie matching, or do you find your clients are you pushing clients in more interesting directions?
I mean, it certainly varies by platform, right? I mean, I hate to say the word, but everybody cares about viewability. I wouldn't call that targeting, but that's an optimization that everyone's looking at today, I think, across the board. And then, standard demos is very important. Like, all the clients are trying to figure out, how does this measure up to what we're buying in other medias? And then you kind of, once you start peeling back that onion, then it gets crazier and crazier. I mean, we certainly, inside of Xaxis, are sitting on a very large data set, and we're identifying audiences and using that for optimization across not just video, but everything we're doing. And that becomes exponentially harder in mobile, and even harder yet in connected television. But that's where we're pushing. We have those conversations every day with clients, and trying to help them understand, what are the options, what works where, when, how. Is it now? Is it tomorrow? Do they want to be ready now? Are they ready tomorrow? So I think that's where we're still kind of feeling our way through a bit. But we all want to be on the bigger screen, and that's where the message resonates. And so then you have to think about the corollary from a data and measurement standpoint.
We see very strong demand for people-based marketing. We think a lot about people instead of data targeting, because when people say data, they think about cookies, and they don't work as well in this new world where you have things like programmatic TV, you have mobile devices, and all of this complicates things. So part of the vision of what we're trying to do is bring quality to that targeting aspect, and there's a lot of people that are really excited about that, especially as publishers see strong consumption shifts from desktop environments into mobile environments. Being able to provide quality targeting to publishers and then the buyers is something that's...
So are we talking proxies for people, or...?
We're talking about anonymous age and gender data that people are able to use to make really quality decisions, and really setting the basics for what brand advertisers are looking for.
And the classic stuff they can bring back to their TV advertising efforts to make it all look nice and well packaged. Very cool. Yeah,
I think Nielsen OCR and a couple of the other measurement companies have made really good progress in being able to measure across these different environments. So what's next to come is really strong targeting, and that's what we're working on.
So demos in real time, or demos in real-time bidding, I mean, do you find, actually I would wonder, how effective is the targeting? Because it's not quite like, it's not the post-impression metric that you normally get with guaranteed sales.
I mean, the targeting that we see, we sit on a very large data pool as part of Facebook, and that data shown over and over again that it's the most accurate targeting marketing pool out there, so we're very excited about.
I mean,
bringing that to
demo's
market.
important, but the intent of the audience is really important as well. So we're looking at various aspects of the consumer in order to make better decisions about the campaign itself, but also what creative we deliver. That's a growing component to what we're really working on with clients, is looking at how do we optimize the creative execution. We're not creative at all, but what we're trying to do is take the creative that we're given, figure out ways to augment that creative in real time so that it delivers the message in the most appropriate way to the consumer based on whatever attributes or behavioral experiences that we've seen about them over time. So we have a big advantage in the fact that we're seeing lots of those behaviors. We sit on first-party data from our clients. We're packaging that together and then using that to make smarter decisions.
What about publisher data resources? Are you leveraging those for programmatic video buys?
I mean, there's a variety of deals that we have in place with partners in order to onboard information about consumers to make better decisions for clients.
I'm wondering, do you guys feel like we have the basics right? There's a lot of conversations about things like viewability, things like age and gender targeting. I almost feel like we're still in that infancy where we're getting that right, and then all of these things will become more important.
How long did it take us to define an impression?
That was a long one, wasn't it?
Very long, right? So we have a long road to go.
Defining viewability
20
was
years.
2-3 year debate at least.
Sure.
And people still think it's not quite up to snuff. So.
Yeah, Jim, I've heard you say something that is interesting, that it was up to you. You would take out the media out of programmatic, because I think that advances the notion that you've got all of the decision making, but then there's no element of programmatic to creative. So you have micro-segmenting, you have targeting, but then you've got one standard creative across all of it. So that's a pretty significant point of failure in terms of the programmatic life cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, targeting is almost, we think of targeting as a lever or an optimization tool, right? We can tweak the targeting to make sure, but the basis of this is how do we put the right messaging in front of the right person in a very one-to-one, personalized way at the right time and within the right context. And then, the tools that we have at our disposal are, we could target better based on the browser, the OS, or the device, all those kind of secondary metrics. But at the end of the day, those are just things that happen based on how you start to deliver, how you analyze the data from that delivery, to go toward a goal of, getting customers to purchase something, right? So, first and foremost, we're looking at, creative. So we've actually built a creative tool, HTML5 dynamic creative tool, into our platform so that we can optimize as you speak to, the creative in real time to make sure we're showing the right set of items or whatever might be, or products to a client, and then using the targeting metrics that we have available based on whatever it is, mobile, social, TV, whatever it might be. Obviously, there's big differences across those platforms, but using those as levers to make sure that we're optimizing toward, getting the most people in front of that message at the right time.
That's fascinating. That's very cool. So lack of transparency seems to be as big an issue as ever. But what are the most important things you think the sell side, where are they holding out on you? What do you want more of?
I mean, by definition, when we're doing deals with publishers, we're forcing transparency. So if we don't get it, we're not going to buy, right? So we made that switch more than a year and a half ago, and that made a big difference for our business. We have a lot of confidence now in the media that we're acquiring on behalf of clients. We have very few of those gotcha moments where the client says, I saw my ad on that site. That doesn't happen anymore. Knock on wood, thankfully, right? Of course, today something's going to go wrong. But that was a big turning point when we made that change. And most publishers that are worth anything are totally fine with that. There's a few holdouts maybe, and I would say that alleviates a lot of other challenges, because every client does have some content restrictions, and so having that transparency enables us to ensure that we easily can weed out those environments where that client doesn't want to be for policy, for competitive issues, whatever the reasoning is, we can adhere to that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think we've made similar, tremendous strides in terms of shutting off people who aren't, adhering to those standards in terms of, disclosing the URLs or masking URLs or anything else, in any way obfuscating the inventory. So we have a subset of people within our data science team that actually are every day out there looking for that kind of stuff, figuring out, okay, within a campaign, what are the certain sellers that we have to shut off on certain marketplaces, what are the certain sites, and then we work very closely with a number of publishers to actually go reach out to them proactively and talk to them about people that are doing stuff with their inventory that they might not be aware of or they might not want.
Those are always fun
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah. Well, they're open to it, and we've actually had, part of our business is now shifting toward a more like consulting piece of it for publishers. So, they're coming to us now and saying, hey, can you guys help us solve this problem? So we have buy-side seats, obviously, on the DSPs, but we also have sell-side seats that we've spun up to be able to help publishers find out this, who's doing this with their inventory, weed that out, and help them, because to your point, they don't want, they're not getting paid, right, if this is happening either, right? So, it's a big
I think it's really interesting because Programmatic has made the buyer more transparent as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I often talk to publishers and I'm like, look, I'm going to be very upfront with you about what we're willing to pay, why we're paying it, what we're seeing from your inventory, why we need a different structure of a deal. And the first few times you have that conversation, the person on the other side of the phone is like, wait, what? You're not unlike any buyer I've ever talked to. But it's good for our business, it's good for our clients, and it makes the whole process just go that much faster. It cleans up the whole environment, right? If you believe you're buying Yahoo, but you're buying it from some shyster, that doesn't do anybody any good, right? No.
Yeah, the first thing we talk to publishers, that's exactly what we do. I say, here's my client list, here's all the campaigns I'm running, that might be a fit, here's their KPI. I mean, we share everything with them. I have no reason not to share that information because they're coming to us and say, well, why aren't you buying more? I'm like, well, it's not really me, right? It's either it's working or it's not, and here's what we need and here's why it's not working.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys feel like you're the exception to this rule, or is this a trend that's going across all media buyers, really?
I mean, I think it's happening in a lot of cases. I think there's still middlemen buying, right? Which maybe there's some of that masking happening, but I think we're trying to be as direct as we can be with partners, and in those cases, we're very transparent.
Yeah, I think it's becoming a lot harder.
Yeah.
It's definitely not, but I think it's becoming harder for those people to do this stuff because I think, like you said, they're coming at from both sides, right? Publishers and demand side both don't want this happening, and I think that communication is a lot better than it's been.
I mean, and we're running tools. I mean, I don't know how you guys are doing it your side, but I mean, every impression that comes through our marketplace, we're scrubbing, and in real time, right? So if it's nefarious in any way, we're quarantining it or rejecting it, depending on how nefarious it is. And the quarantining thing, when we first started that process, and this is almost a year ago, I thought the publishers were going to revolt. And it turned out that, if you're dealing with a legitimate publisher, they're okay with it. Like the fact that I'm taking 5% or 8% of their inventory and putting it in quarantine because it is fraud, they were like, great, thanks for paying for that, because I didn't want to.
Yeah, and what we found is a subset of that isn't their inventory anyway. It's being masked as being paraded around as their inventory. It's not like this isn't, we go to these sites and it's, 100 ads layered on top of one another running. So yeah, we pull down, like you mentioned, we pull down all the log level data from all of our impressions, so we could pretty easily spot who's doing this and when it's happening.
I'm sorry, could you explain the quarantining like just real quick? Is that a word?
Yeah, so our implementation with partners is direct, and so we effectively onboard the inventory. So we get the request, we capture it, we're buying this inventory on a reserve basis, so we take that inventory in-house and then we run it through a filter, and if it is non-human traffic, we quarantine it. If it's not brand safe based on the standard we've identified with that publisher, we then give it back to them.
Oh, you give it back to
them?
Yeah,
no, but if it's non-human traffic or fraud or illegal content, we do not give it back, and we do not pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, we're sort of a platform, so we facilitate, and across the board, we're seeing demand for transparency across every single dimension, including for viewability, how much was measured versus how much not, media costs versus data costs. I think across the board, we're seeing increasingly demand from buyers for transparency in every aspect of the business, pre-bidding solutions to avoid bots. That's extending into site fraud, which is a much broader category as well. So just horizontally across every aspect, demand for transparency.
And I think that has been here for a while. I think what has changed is that buyers would ask for transparency, and then publishers, premium publishers arguably, would hesitate to come in because the CPMs weren't there. I think what we've seen on the publisher side over the last year, more with direct deals, is that the CPMs are actually there. Advertisers are starting to see the value in the direct deals, and buyers are coming through with CPMs that frankly beat direct campaigns, and thus both the publisher and the advertiser wins. Everyone's good.
When we're talking direct deals, we're talking more like preferred deals, private exchanges, stuff like that.
Exactly. Still a bit of manual work going into those, but that's
but it's also it's calmed down. It's not quite the the operational fracas it once was.
I think people on both sides kind of know how to execute now. Now we just want to automate.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, the lovely word. So we're running into the final 10 minutes here. A couple questions more I wanted to ask. One, I hate asking the definition questions, but there is one that I hear the term programmatic TV. I've already heard it a few times today, and I'm really confused what all that entails. And anyone want to take a stab at all the different things that might represent?
You said we have 10 minutes. I doubt that'll be enough.
Yeah. I think it's a broad term that people use to describe everything that's digitally enabled in some way or addressable, right? So when you think about connected TV, that's different from IPTV, which is different from VOD, which is different, from linear, right? Because there is a programmatic element even in the linear category, because there's an order management system that sits in the front end that you could create an auction on a spot that's going to get delivered 3 weeks out, right? So you could run the auction today for that spot that's going to be delivered, through a very traditional linear process.
And I think the challenge is, sorry.
Yeah, please.
No, so within each of the categories that Larry then explains is that you have multiple different products, right? So within the OTT category, you might have the Roku box, the Apple TV box, there are many different channels, and all of these platforms are built on native technology that renders ads differently, that counts impressions differently, with different targeting methodologies, and that really complicates that space. So what we are trying to do is just bring a unified technology to all of these different platforms and connect with all of these friendly folks so that we can all agree on how we count impressions and all the basics are in place.
Well, hurry up with that, all right?
All right.
Can I take it to the audience? Do we have the mic runners around? Who wants to make the mic runners work? Who's got a question? No.
I have two other questions. I don't want to make it too
There's a charm. Go for it.
Figured it out from twice before. So again, Peter Edry with Smato. With video on mobile devices, I know my content consumption. I imagine all you guys know yours. I don't watch TV anymore. I cut my cable years ago. I'm on my video device, on my mobile device. What is the single most difficult thing? Most of you guys, if I'm correct, are very much so desktop first from your technology stack. What's the most difficult portion for you guys in figuring out mobile web versus app, and just figuring out mobile in general from your technology stacks?
I mean, from our point of view, the challenge that we've heard over and over from publishers is that all the technologies that they can take advantage of today are built for a world of cookies, and there's nothing that's really native to the mobile environment. We're working on that problem, and we are building a native mobile technology that we want to talk about.
I heard something about
Yeah, we announced a couple of big things at F8, basically for publishers to take the power of Facebook and bring that into in-app advertising. So we're very excited to sort of bring that to publishers.
Yeah, I mean, we're basically leaning into it. We basically have built our own device graph. We see lots of device IDs. We sit on a massive data set on the cookie side of the equation. So we've been working really the first half of this year on building out that graph and making it policy compliant within our organization, also for our clients, and then being able to bridge that. We actually just bought a company about a month and a half ago that's going to allow us to actually address that media in mobile. So from a DSP perspective, which I think is going to really make a big difference. We have a lot of interest from clients to obviously be there because that's where consumers are, but making that experience as addressable in a privacy compliant way as we have with cookies is been the hurdle. And given that we're an audience buying company, we had to make sure we could do audience buying in those environments in a seamless way. So it's taken us far longer than I think we would have liked, but I think we're on the cusp of that.
I'm curious to you too, Jim. Like with mobile programmatic, what are your biggest obstacles there?
I mean, I don't think it's all that different from anything else we do in terms of, it requires a lot of different partners and vendors across the spectrum in terms of, different partners for measurement, attribution, for delivery across the DSPs, different marketplaces to plug into on the supply side. So, I don't know that, I think you guys covered the specific kind of technical challenges of it pretty well, but, I think for us it's similar stuff to what we do in desktop and everything else, which is it's really hard to connect, a user or a customer across all these different channels in one place. And I think that, mobile, TV, all these other things apply, the same way.
There's a bit of education too, because I think clients and kind of the traditional agency planning teams still think in silos.
Yep.
And so when they think mobile, they think, oh, that's this app download thing over here, when it's really not that anymore. I mean, it's still that, but it's not. It doesn't have to be that only. So.
Yeah, I talk a lot, because everyone says, oh, well, everyone's on mobile. It's like, well, yeah, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily a good, when we talk to brands, that's not necessarily mean it's a good way or medium for your brand to be in, right? Just because people are on a mobile device, they may not want to view your brand on a mobile device. It might not be a good experience. It may be that you shouldn't be there all the time, or in certain, in an app or in a desktop or, or tablet. So a lot of it, to your point, is education around, it's not just, oh, let's just throw it on mobile because everyone's on, doing it. It's like, well, no, how do we actually apply some data and some smart, decisioning to it?
So I thought I saw another hand out there in the crowd. Do we have another? Ah, yes, there is. Run to him.
Yes, Nicholas Carduso. I sit on the sell side, so this gives me a chance to ask you a question that I'd like to know. How do you define success, or how do the advertisers define success for a campaign? Like for me, it's making sure that the campaign delivers. But when you go back to the advertiser, how do they know they did a good job with their money?
Oh, well, yeah. That's a good one. Yeah, you go ahead. You started.
Sure. I mean, in terms of, if you look at measurement and what's possible, the video space is vastly and fundamentally different from display. It's not a direct response mechanism. So what metrics do you look at? And our clients will look at things as viewability. And again, when I say viewability, I mean more than just the IAB MRC standard, which is really an opportunity to see standard. It has zero implication on whether the ad was effective or not. But the technology exists today where you could look at each quartile, how much of the ad was in view throughout the duration of the ad. We, for example, have something we call average viewability percentage, which is a score for the overall exposure and experience. So clients are looking at those kinds of metrics. They're looking at completion rate. They're sometimes combining that with player side, which intuitively we know has an impact on brand. But they're scoring that differently as well to arrive at a score that ranks it based on its actual impact in terms of how much of it was seen, for what duration, was the audio turned on or off, was it in the active tab. So those are some of the fundamental things that some of our clients are measuring. Obviously, it doesn't get to sales. That starts to get a lot more complex. And I don't know that anyone has figured that out at scale.
I mean, we're certainly doing that. I mean, we're looking at lift and attribution from video. But not every client, right? So some clients, all they care about is creative engagement. They want a very high completion rate that is in view.
Correct.
Right? That is primary number one. Other people care about the demo reached. Other people care
GRPs.
about the, did this video experience drive engagement and get people to spend X amount of time on the website inside their product tutorial or in store, right, at the dealer. Like those are the things that we're looking at trying to piece together the kind of sales lift or exposure downstream with those creative messages, right? And that varies client to client to client.
Correct.
And so you can't just ask for one metric. And delivery would be great. If that's all we were measured on, this is an easy business. We're all on the beach. But I think every client has different expectations. There are starting to see some things that are, I would call it table stakes. I think viewability and completion rate are getting pretty close to that in video. And then it's about, all right, what's the after that? What's the consumer behavior that happened after the ad that you were trying to compel them to do? Those are the metrics that we really are going to start optimizing towards and care about. But right now, it's getting the table stakes right has to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, and many campaigns are mapped to the actual consumer journey and the marketing funnel. So, you have different metrics associated with different points in the funnel. Everything from viewability to completion that is mapped to upper funnel, down to the good old click-through rate and CPA that's mapped to the lower part of the funnel. And whether that really works for video, I mean, we all know it doesn't work as well as it does for display given the economics and the CPMs. But we still see enough clients setting up those types of campaigns as well.
Well, that actually is it's a really nice note to end this off on. I'd like y'all to give my panelists a hand. Very nice talking with all you gentlemen today.
Thank you, Kevin.
And I'll hand it back over to Will for the next round of things.